All right. We are live here again in studio. I'm Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com, joined by Keely, Eure, and Shotgun Spratling. What are we about? We're about half, two-thirds. No, yeah, half of the USCFootball.com staff. Yeah, there's 6 of us now. It's crazy.
Wow. Rolling deep.
We got Trevino. Yeah, Trevino is like the late ad. Yeah, we haven't, so Keely was pointing out, we haven't all been in the same room for a while.
I mean, at least for this. For
Yeah.
Facebook Live.
Yeah, for this year, first time this year. It's 2018. We were
true.
all together in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl. I don't know if you guys remember that. Wasn't all that pretty, but we wanted, this is our little show, our Facebook Live show. We try to do them every Thursday at noon Pacific, talking about the latest happenings of USC football. So what we want to do is make it interactive. So if you're on our Facebook page, it's facebook.com/USCFootball.com. Spell out .dot. You can put comments and stuff in there on our Facebook page. If you're not on Facebook, you can't comment, but you can tweet us at Inside Troy, at Keely is my name, or at Shotgun SPR. Let us know that you're watching and you would like a question answered. Comments. We usually get a whole bunch of comments during this, and we'll do our best over an hour or so to answer all of your questions. Well, how are you guys doing?
Good. I'm excited. I'm rested. 2018 is off to a good start. So
Keely's broad-eyed, bushy-tailed, not so much Shotgun.
I've been dealing with car dealerships all day, so
Yeah.
trying to get my vehicular recovered and corrected. But we'll see if that happens. I might be without a car soon.
LA vehicle problems are not pretty. Like you're in Boston or something. You're like, yeah, I'm going to take the T today or the next week. But LA, it's hard to do that kind of stuff.
I mean, I went a year without driving, so I think I could do it
he
again.
told me this on the way over here because I drove him here. He got his license suspended because he was speeding too much. Sorry, I put you on blast. I'm sorry.
Jeez, just throw my business out in the streets,
My
huh?
bad,
Just throw
my
it out
bad, I'm
there. Just
sorry.
all my
You
clothes.
I'm sorry, my bad. I have a big mouth.
Not that
but
everyone's going to see this, but
oh my
whatever,
bad.
what?
Sorry, Shotgun.
Yeah, apparently there are speed limits in LA. Who knew?
It's hard to get speeding tickets in LA. Because,
I know, that's what I thought. I thought if the road was actually clear for once, you're allowed to just go as fast as you
Yeah.
want. I think that should be a rule in LA because you're so used to being stuck and frustrated in traffic that when it's clear, you should be able to go.
Go. I agree. Totally agree.
All right. So what's going on around the USC football program? Of course, well, we've done one show since the Cotton Bowl, right? We did the one when you remoted me in. So we love that setup that Keely set up. It was just a little late today because of Shotgun speeding and accidents and all this kind of stuff. So we're not, just
I
throw
get
it
blamed
in
for
the
everything. Here.
But we'll try to set that up here in the studio going forward because that was cool. I like the questions interaction on the screen and everything. So we'll do our best to get that. For the next show, we know some players have declared for the NFL draft. There's some are coming back. There's reports this morning about an assistant coaching hire. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff. Recruiting is going on, big official visit weekend. Probably not too much. If you guys have questions, we'll talk some recruiting as well. Certainly won't talk about USC winning in basketball last night, so we'll just mention that at the top. USC won.
Whoa. But there was actually some drama there, a little bit of a little feuding between the coaches. That was actually, got a little interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little shade being thrown.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A timeout with 21 seconds left, and then at the end, Andy Enfield going over and putting hand sanitizer on his hands and wiping his hands clean at the end of that timeout.
Nice.
I don't know if that was directly in regards to the comments from Tad Boyle, Colorado's coach previously, but it just added a little extra element to it. You can read about the basketball on the site as well. We have a little bit of basketball coverage there, too.
There is. Shotgun's doing that. There's way too much talk of basketball already, so we're going to move on from that.
Another thing about basketball, though, is the fact...
Did you not hear what I said?
No, this is huge news, though. There is believed to be that DeAnthony Melton, there will be a decision this week. That's what his lawyer told the LA Times. I'm hearing that maybe it'll happen. The coaching staff and people around the program don't know for sure still, but they believe that a decision is coming. It'd be good to finally know for the future whether or not he's going to be allowed to play or not. And maybe USC gets him back and changes things. Who knows?
Yeah.
Now we can stop with basketball. That's potential big news.
Thank you, Boss Shotgun, for letting us know when we can stop. All right.
I do what I can.
Hey, you had a rough morning, so we're going to give him a break and let him talk a couple minutes of USC hoops. Sound working? Is everyone, like, people chiming in? Everyone can hear us okay? Like, we haven't done this for a while. Hopefully, no one's complaining.
Bill says, I only see half of Ryan and Shotgun. Bill, that might be a personal problem.
You only see half of Ryan and so it sounds like his screen is.
Oh, you got to widen the screen.
Yeah,
Maybe
maybe
it's
that.
just the Keely show. Who knows?
It could be just the Keely
Ooh.
show. I could move over this
Tester
way.
Troy says, sounds good.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
Tester. No predictions today, so.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll get one out of you, or at least try.
So Keely's done a really good job of like tweeting out the updates on who is staying, who is going. So maybe Keely, you want to give like an update.
Yes, here's your official update as of 12:05
Current.
on Thursday. So who's entered the draft or is going to enter the draft? Sam Darnold, Ronald Jones, Deontay Burnett, returning Cam Smith, Tolomadon, Porter Gustin, and Chuma Adoga. TBD as of now, Rasheem Green, Iman Marshall, and Marvell Tell.
That's for the underclass that are
It's the junior class
that are eligible.
and the notable junior
Sam
class.
Darnold's technically not in the junior class.
He's a redshirt junior.
He's a redshirt sophomore.
Sophomore, yeah.
Oh, my bad. No, okay, but he's still
He's a
junior.
third year. He's a third year player.
Okay, but let's just slip him in there. He counts. That's what I have to
Yeah,
say. About that.
exactly.
He's
Technically not.
Technically, I'm
But
gonna
this
count it.
could, this could be like our podcast.
Academically, what is he? A junior.
He may be graduated already, so he might be already a senior. Because some of these guys have already done 3 years plus all their summer work, so some of them are already seniors.
Okay, whatever.
Exactly. So if we find any breaking news, we'll let you know. Because this happened to us last week during
Yeah.
our podcast with me and Keely, where we were taping, and then we find out word of Ronald
Joe.
Jones
Yep.
announcing his decision. Not unsurprising to us.
Yeah.
But always surprising when it's in the middle of a show when something happens like that. So
Were you guys surprised about Deontay at all?
I was.
yeah, a little bit.
I mean, the thing when you think about it is, what else is he going to do at USC that will boost his draft stock next year? I mean, is he going to add 20 pounds of weight or something? I think, is he going to gain 3 inches? Is he going to get faster? I mean, I don't think those things are going to happen that would increase his draft stock drastically enough for him to come back. And you have to factor in the fact that because he's a slight guy, taking hits, he is more prone to injury. And we've seen him get nicked up over the course of his career, 3 or 4 or 5 times. So if he comes back, the potential of the risking the injury, I think, when you take a look at it on the outside and look at those factors, it makes sense for him to leave this year.
If you look at USC's wide receivers in the NFL, they've been productive, especially this last year. So, there's a little bit of reason there. I think he's a really good college wide receiver. It'll be interesting to see how that translates to the NFL. He's a really talented kid. He was strange story. Greg Biggins was telling me when we were, I think, San Antonio, where he wasn't San Antonio, but we just not Brandon Huffman was telling me, he committed to Michigan, flew to Michigan, took a visit. On the flight back, there was a coaching change, and Harbaugh came in or something, and I can't remember what it was, but they basically took another receiver and dropped him, and then he committed to Washington State, and then changed on signing day. So his route to USC was very very interesting, and great kid. Definitely wish him the best. Thought he was going to come back, and then kind of late in the process started hearing that he might be going.
Yeah, and as a blue shirt candidate coming in, being the kind of the first guy that people were like, "What's this blue shirt?" USC, and that means he waited out the entire summer with other teams able to contact him and stuff, and stuck with his word to USC. And I think the most interesting thing about his recruiting story is that no one really knew anything about him, and T. Martin was interested in him because who was he recruiting at that time? Adoree Jackson.
Yeah.
And Adoree Jackson said, "This is the toughest guy I have to cover. He's the one that makes me work the most." And he kind of lit up some eyes of people, watching practice, seeing him go against Adoree in practice. And, that's sometimes how you got to make your mark. When scouts just are there to see someone else, what can you do to show them something different?
I was there at Sarah High School. We were filming these scout spotlights that we used to do. So Gerard and Greg Biggins were down there. And there was a whole bunch of USC targets already on that team. And then I'm watching some of the guys. I'm like, who the heck is that? And it was Deontay Burnett. And Gerard's like, oh, Deontay Burnett. He's going to Washington State. I'm like, dude, that guy is good. That guy's good. It's like you could tell, just watching. And I'd seen him in games before, but you're usually filming Adoree and all these other guys that USC was after, and they weren't really after him. So you could, he definitely was productive. You could tell. And like Shotgun said, Adoree gave him high praise from those Sarah practices. So,
and I think he's going to have a much better chance in the NFL now than maybe even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, because of the proliferation of the spread offenses and how you've seen those slot receivers become so dynamic and be so useful in offenses like the Patriots and some of the other offenses that have really used guys in the slot. Even the Steelers, the way they move around Juju, they move around Antonio Brown using that slot. a lot. I think that gives him a much better opportunity going to the next level because of how well he catches the ball and how he's always seems to be able to find his way open with his route running and just kind of knowing the defense, finding the soft spots really well.
I was recording a recruiting podcast with Gerard Martinez yesterday, and during the podcast, like two of the guys declared they were coming back. So who was it yesterday? Lobendon
and Cameron Smith.
And Cameron Smith, yeah. So it was like, oh, okay. So that was like kind of happening as we're recording, so you get to kind of talk about it. So we'll see if either one of the big three on defense that are left, just the big three because that's 3 guys left, end up declaring. You guys have any thoughts on Marshall or Green or Marvell Tell? It doesn't seem like Marvell Tell would go, but who knows?
I've heard both ways for both Iman and Green. We put in the war room about Green. He didn't really get a great draft eval, is what we heard. But that's not the only thing that weighs into their decision. There's also family things. So I don't know. I definitely have heard both ways for both of them, and I feel like it's definitely a toss-up at this point.
Yeah.
And Rasheem Green even told me, leading up to the Cotton Bowl practices, he said that, he didn't think he had a great year. I mean, he's been nicked up a lot of the year. I thought he was tremendous.
Yeah.
He was a beast inside for USC and did a lot of things that some of the other defensive linemen couldn't do. But he didn't think he had a great year. So maybe he thinks he can come back and, and put together even more impressive numbers. I mean, his numbers are really good for a defensive tackle / end. So he's not a true, weak side, round the corner defensive end, and that's also part of the evaluation issue is where does he fit at the next level? Is he, does he have to move inside? Is he able to play the end in a 3-4? There's some differences there. So, I think that's one of the things he has to find out from those NFL personnel, and that's where that conversation with Clay Helton and the coaching staff and stuff. I think that's where that comes in really big.
Yeah, I think it was really underrated how injured he was throughout the whole season and how well he played through injury. I mean, he had that ankle injury that kept nagging him, and then he had that shoulder injury. So he played really well and I don't think he missed, I think he missed maybe a couple quarters, but he never missed a game due to his injury. And so the fact that he was able to put up those numbers is impressive.
Gerard Martinez had reported that there was a meeting with KU, Kenichi Daisy. I think it was a couple days ago now. So we'll see. Kind of expected to hear something. So most likely it's going to come during this noon hour. They put them both out yesterday. So we'll see. If you guys have any questions about any of the guys that are leaving early, obviously the big three on offense, Sam Darnold, you might have heard of him, Ronald Jones, the second, and of course Deontay Burnett. So, I mean, your best quarterback, running back, and wide receiver all gone. Certainly going to make the offense look a little bit different next year. So spring football is going to be very important just to kind of see what this team looks like and what these guys do.
And who has the front runner spots going into the fall? Because JT Daniels, people want to say, oh, he's going to jump in and immediately well, he's not going to be here in the spring, so he's going to be definitely behind, not only from the last 2 years for Matt Fink or the last year for Jack Sears, but also through the spring and the summer workouts as well. So, he's going to get there in the middle of the summer. He's got a ton of classes to go to finish up, and he has to finish all those before. I mean, the plan is for him to be here in the fall, but he has to finish everything.
Yeah.
So, it's not a guarantee that he is going to be here in the fall. I mean, they'll do everything they can to him and his family to be able to do it, but he's got to finish the work, and there's a lot of classes left on that slate for him. So who's going to have the advantage going into the fall? I think even before JT Daniels gets here, will be interesting to see. I mean, you only have two scholarship quarterbacks as of right now, so unless you get a grad transfer or something to come in, those two guys are going to get a ton of reps in the spring, and it's going to be a battle back and forth for those guys.
I'm really interested to see who becomes a leader on the offense, because a lot of guys left in terms of leadership or quiet leadership. I mean, Rojo didn't say much, but his presence was kind of a leader on the team. Toa Lobendon, him coming back is huge just in the sense of a leader and veteran. I think he has at least 32 career starts, I believe, something like that.
I think so, yeah.
So he has a lot of experience. The next guy I feel like is maybe Daniel Matabebe. I don't know. I mean, like the experience ranges very, very much because there's a lot of young guys, and I'm really curious to see. I feel like Michael Pittman, he's kind of a louder guy. Maybe he steps into that role. I don't know. Tyler Vaughn's is kind of a more quiet, but leads with his actions type guy. Your
a lot
boy.
of quiet guys. A lot of quiet guys.
But still a lot of quiet guys. And I think that's what was missing this season is that vocal leadership on the offense. So I'm curious to see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, no Zach Banner, and they needed a Chris Hawkins or something on offense. They didn't really have one.
I mean, I don't know if he'll be a leader next year, but you're getting a vocal guy, and I'm on Ross St. Brown. He's going to tell every DB when he beats them about how he just beat them.
Yeah.
That's Kelly.
So Gerard had an interesting theory on, and we've covered JT Daniels a lot. Keely, we've all interviewed him, all of us here. I did a one-on-one with him Sunday in San Antonio, and he was great, talking about how he didn't really care about how he performed. He was only there to recruit, and then he goes out and performs better than all the other quarterbacks. I mean, special kid. His theory was, if you look at the track record at USC, Sam Darnold was the better quarterback, didn't start. So even if JT Daniels comes in, he only has a couple weeks to win it. Even if he's by far and away the better quarterback, what is Clay Helton's incentive to start him? Would you rather start Matt Fink or Jack Sears, and then let JT Daniels kind of learn, and then at some point 2 or 3 games, 4 games into the season, if it's not going well, you have to play on the road at Stanford, on the road at Texas, you put him in and then let him be kind of the savior and go forward, and you don't have one of the other guys transfer out. So same kind of problem. If JT Daniels wins a job, does Matt Fink or Jack Sears transfer out of the program, and then you're stuck with just 2 scholarship quarterbacks again. So Gerard's kind of theory was same thing that happened last time. I don't know what you guys think.
I would say that there's differences there because Max Brown was already an older guy, and Sam Darnold had kind of proven himself in practice. Whereas JT Daniels is going to have 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, I think now, with the new extended fall camp to prove himself. And then it's different in game action, whereas Sam Darnold had scrimmages and different things. So, even if you lose out on that job, you say, well, if he starts struggling, I might have my chance to get thrown in there too. And it's much different when you're still a couple years away. None of those guys are going to be able to grad transfer. I think that was a big difference with Max Brown. He was able to finish his stuff and be able to immediately grad transfer. So I think there's some differences there that wouldn't lend themselves to an immediate transfer for those guys.
We shall see.
And also, I would say that we all know that Clay Helton is learning on the job. I mean, that's been thrown out there. Does he learn from what's happened the first 2 years? I mean, maybe that's part of it. He learns that maybe the seniority thing isn't the best route to go. Some of these guys have performed really well after we've given them their opportunities. Maybe we go a little bit earlier with those opportunities. So
I think we're seeing Clay Helton kind of stick to his plans, though. And we'll talk about the reported assistant coaching. It seems like, maybe there's some learning on the job, but there's also a philosophy that he seems to be sticking to, and that's kind of the way it goes. I don't know.
Which I don't understand. I feel like the past 2 seasons would have shown Helton that maybe you need to pull the trigger on guys that look better. What would have been the season if Tyler Vaughn's got the start? If Darnold and him had more chemistry from the beginning? Maybe they win that Wazoo game instead of Tyler Vaughn's making his debut in that Wazoo game, really. And then look at what happens to the 2016 season if Darnold starts. I don't know.
Did they beat Utah that year?
Yeah, and
maybe they're the first team to ever make the playoff with a 2-loss team. If that happens, you don't know. It's hard to say.
Exactly. So I keep saying it will probably be a test for Helton as growing as a head coach if he makes those hard decisions and makes the decisions that he learns from his mistakes. And so I don't know. From what we've heard and seen, it seems like he's just sticking to his guns.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know.
And, so we'll watch spring. I think Matt Fink made a lot of strides from last year, from 2016 to 17. I think Jack Sears, it was a bit of a struggle, getting into, for the college and then from high school to college. So we'll see, hopefully he makes some strides and stuff too. My wife's calling me. Doesn't she know that we have this thing going? And okay, this is going to kill me, but I'm going to mention one more basketball thing, unfortunately. So Nathan Fenno, is that his name?
Yes, the LA Times writer.
Yeah, LA Times. So he just tweeted out, USC will hold out sophomore DeAnthony Melton for the rest of the season in connection with the college basketball bribery case, his attorney told the LA Times.
Wow.
So you don't have to cover basketball for the rest of the season now, Shaka. We're good. If they're not even letting him play. They're just like writing him off. We'll just not stop covering. What do you think? Probably not. No.
Probably.
Okay. That's kind of a bummer, though, right? Like, it just seems like very conservative on USC sides to hold him out for the whole season. Not
Everyone else involved is currently playing except for Brian Bowen, who was named and was apparently given money. And he's also transferred from Louisville to South Carolina, so when he becomes eligible, might be sooner rather than later. DeAnthony Melton has been held out more than anyone else in connection with this, and it's USC compliance over and over and over again. We see that the USC compliance is super strict on things and kind of overboard on things. We see it with their, in regards to their access, our access with recruits and different things on campus. They're super strict where other schools kind of facilitate interviews. We're not even allowed to glance in their direction without a stern talking to. So it's just a consistent theme, and it's really annoying. I mean, if for this kid, this is his opportunity to make his way in life is through the basketball court and have an opportunity to increase his stock, his draft stock. He's a potential first-round pick, millions of dollars potentially at stake, and he doesn't even get an opportunity to play because, well, we don't know what this family friend did. DeAnthony Melton, according to everything we've read, DeAnthony Melton has done everything asked. He's turned over financials. He's done everything else. And instead, he still gets punished in this situation. It's just terrible, in my opinion.
It is. I mean, I hate it. And we've seen them be overly conservative in many, many cases, of course, with the USC, the football sanctions, all that stuff. But we don't want to jump that. But unfortunately, DeAnthony Melton apparently not going to play for the Trojans for the rest of the season. I guess we can. So if we have any questions on the players and stuff, but I wanted to touch on, or should we touch on the assistant coaching stuff first? Or
we have a lot of questions.
Okay, real quick on the assistant coaching stuff. So being reported, I think it was Football Scoop first, and then Bruce Feldman, that Brian Ellis is going to be the new quarterback coach for USC. They didn't say anything about passing game coordinator, but basically he's taking over for Tyson Helton, who was officially announced yesterday, finally, that he's going to be the offensive coordinator at Tennessee. We got to see Brian and talk to him. I retweeted the story I did on him from December 19th, I believe, from Bull practices. He basically played at UAB. Tyson Helton was his quarterback coach. Neil Callaway was his head coach. Kim Helton, I think, was the offensive line coach, and he coached against Clay Helton, who was at Memphis at the time, I believe. I got all that stuff right. So couldn't be any more tied to this Helton clan than Brian Ellis is right now. We asked Clay Helton if it was a possibility that he could be retained, and he said definitely. And now we are hearing that he is. It was overly negative reaction on Twitter and on the peristyle. People are like, "Oh, what was me?" I've heard to be honest, I've heard some good things about him from inside the program, but to the perception of hiring another Western Kentucky guy. So he's basically a support staff guy that was promoted. He has 1 year of assistant coaching experience as a wide receiver coach at Western Kentucky the year before Brian Brom left. He did get to call plays in the bowl game after Brom, and a lot of the staff left. And got some good grades from that, but obviously not a lot of experience, never been a quarterback coach before, and you're losing Sam Darnold. You're going to have some young quarterback in there. The fact that he's tied to the Helton clan, Western Kentucky, it's been overly negative. I don't know if you guys seen the same thing, but just overly negative reaction on Twitter and the peristyle.
You were getting ratioed when you were tweeting. The comments when you were tweeting about Brian Ellis were just 30 comments and 5 likes. It was pretty funny. But Jeremy Edward not Jeremy. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Someone. Where's the question? It says basically Jeremy Price said, "Is the excitement the most important thing in a coaching hire, or putting the right guy in place?"
No, it's putting the right guy in place.
No, we got to be excited, guys. Got to be excited.
And if you're a head coach that listens to fan bases, then you'll probably be what's the old adage that you'll be with them. You'll be sitting with them. If you listen to fans, that's where you'll be sitting soon. I think in a case like this, though, and I was tweeting with some people, in the program who were, trying to defend things that, they're realizing yeah, we get it. It's the perception of USC's been so insular with hires, and nepotism, it just seems like it's prevalent. And everyone that USC hires is someone that you know, and it's close to your group. It's like the most comfortable, simple hire. So if USC hadn't been doing that all along, then maybe you could say, hey, this could really work. There have been, support staff people that have been promoted like KU, that have worked out. But there's been so many of those. And then last year USC needs to replace one coach, and they get Dylan McCullough. Now, do we know if he's the greatest running back coach ever? It's hard to tell, but he put 3 dudes in the NFL from Indiana.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good. I think he made Ronald Jones a better running back. They didn't fumble the ball from the running back position. All accounts seem to think like going outside of the USC family and getting just a good running back coach worked out well, and I think USC fans wanted to see that repeated. And if you did that a couple of times, it makes the whole staff better and you kind of move forward. So no, it's not about you have to always make a big splash, but and Dylan McCullough's not like a big splash guy. It was just a smart hire. And maybe this is a smart hire, but just on the perception wise, it just seems like it's the most comfortable, easy hire, which that's what I think makes a lot of the fans upset.
Do we know if they just promoted Ellis without looking at anyone, or did they look at people and then go, "Oh, Ellis is the guy"?
We don't know that. My guess is Ellis was the guy. Like if I had to pick, I don't know. If you have any thoughts, Shotgun or whatever.
That's what we seem to have heard. But with Brian Ellis, Keely and I were discussing this on the way. I think the QB coach is the lowest spot on the totem pole on a coaching staff, because the offensive coordinator is going to control what the quarterback is doing. And most of the time, the offensive coordinator is the QB coach. So a separate QB coach, I think, is at the very bottom as far as the coaching on my coaching staff totem pole. And I think you have a guy who has been a QB coach before at Western Kentucky, had a really good quarterback there. They threw for a ton of yards in that offense with Jeff Brom. He moved up and was their offensive coordinator as an interim for the bowl game. So I think he's done some good things. I don't think it's a big deal if they hire him. I think it's just more of the trend that you're not seeing a lot of looking outside for other coaches. I think that's the biggest issue, not necessarily the Brian Ellis hire itself, because how many quarterback coaches can you name in the country that are not also the offensive coordinator? Can anyone? If you can throw a couple in the comment section, I'd appreciate it, because off the top of my head, I do not know a single solo quarterback coach. I couldn't tell you the one at UCLA. I mean, Tui Asasopo at one point was a quarterback coach, but he's not anymore, I don't think.
I think, and I think he's
a cow now. Maybe he's the quarterback coach.
He might be going to Arizona now, because Neuheisel might be the coach there, and they talk about that. We're actually going to do a Pac-12 podcast later today, so check that out.
There's no way Neuheisel's getting that job, really?
He's a candidate, which is funny. Yeah, no, I get it. And people are saying that, like, well, you'd have to Google quarterback coaches. And, well, the problem is Brian Ellis might be a really good coach. He's never been a quarterback coach, like a full-time assistant quarterback coach before. So there's at least 130 other quarterback coaches out there that have more experience than him, and way more than that. So it's like, I get it. You don't want, and he seems like he's a really nice guy, getting to talk to him. And like I said, I've heard good things. And that's probably why they hired him. But it's just like the perception of it's so easy, it's so comfortable. It's just the guy that that's tied to your dad and basically your uncle and your brother. And I think USC fans just wanted them to get away from that, even if that was like the best guy possible, And obviously he's never been in this position before, so it's hard to call him the best guy possible. So I get what USC fans are saying. I think Clay Helton is getting a lot of pressure. They understand that a lot of the fans don't believe them inside the John McKay Center. They understand that, but he has his own philosophy, and I think he's sticking to it. So if you've seen him make decisions in the past couple of years, I wouldn't bank on him making sort of different decisions going forward. Like the Dylan McCullough hire, that might be more of the exception. A lot of people were kind of hoping it was going to be the rule.
I guess, like, for me, the Cotton Bowl kind of showed how when you hire staff that knows what they're doing or is experienced, it makes a difference. If you look at Clancy, that made a difference versus the offensive coordinating stuff is just not really going well, or at least so far. And so I thought it made it kind of clear, like, you should hire someone who really knows what they're doing. And especially if you're going into this new year with inexperienced quarterbacks, that position's very young.
Yeah.
It would make sense to have someone who is experienced. I mean, he has experience, but I guess at least give the impression like you're looking, or you made the effort to do it. Because just doing this like little, hey, let's pick them up thing doesn't sit well.
And I think when you look at, you're trying to compare yourself, if you're USC, to the other programs that were ranked ahead of you in the playoff and all that kind of stuff. You look at Ohio State. Okay, so their 10th assistant, did they like promote a grad student or anything? No. They hired Alex Grinch from Washington State, who's like a highly, touted defensive coordinator for Washington State. A huge loss for Mike Leach. They already have Greg Schiano as their defensive coordinator. They bring him in as coach. So that's like a program that just beat you in the Cotton Bowl. They're not settling for an internal hire. They're going out and going, who's one of the better coordinators in the Pac-12? We're going to go get him. So I think that's what a lot of fans would like to see, is just USC acting like it's a power program that can go out and poach good coaches from other programs instead of promoting guys or hiring guys that other programs wouldn't be looking at all. And it's hard to say if anyone's looking at Brian Ellis. I doubt it. I mean, he wasn't a full-time assistant. You want to hire coaches that other programs would like, but USC's got more clout and they could take them away. I guess that's how at least a lot of fans that are tweeting at me and posting seem to be feeling.
I agree. We should probably get into questions because
I think we're answering all the questions because they're all, are we going to replace this coach? We're going to replace this coach. We're going to replace this coach. Why are we replacing why are we filling the QB place with Brian Ellis? I think that's about 62% of the questions so far.
Yeah, I've been monitoring. People are asking, is there going to be a new O-line coach?
I don't think so. Okay, I mean, unless he retires, which I don't think is going to happen. I mean, Neil Callaway's basically like Clay Helton's uncle. No, I don't think they're going to make a change. I know a lot of fans would like to see that, but I don't see them making big changes like that. Now, there's been reports like T. Martin interviewing for other jobs. If someone leaves on their own, now maybe there's a couple of guys that are kind of encouraged to leave. I don't think Neil Callaway is one of those guys. I think there's, he's a close friend of the family. I just don't see Clay Helton making that move right now.
What about new strength coach?
Haven't heard anything about that. There's strength coaches being poached.
We're not hearing much about new coaches pretty much anywhere.
At USC, at other programs, yes. That's what fans are mad about because they're like, this guy hired him and this guy hired him, and Oregon went out and got this guy, and USC's like standing pat, and fans don't like that, but they appear to be standing pat.
Multiple people have suggested hiring Shotgun, so.
I like money, so yes, that would work perfectly.
That would help with the car problems and everything.
Yeah, I can break down film all day, guys. I don't have to sleep ever.
Dude, I would be a badass athletic director. Come on, let's do this.
I would be down to cover this mess that you guys would have. Let's see.
People have emailed for the podcast and stuff and said why don't you just become the athletic director? I don't know. I would take the paycheck for sure. I mean, I think I could handle it. That'd be fine.
You're already an institution.
I have as much athletic director experience as the last 3 or 4 athletic directors that USC has hired.
True.
I just didn't carry the ball or throw it for USC or catch it.
You weren't a Rhodes Scholar.
That's true too. But I have a degree in electroengineering. I'll put that up against his Rhodes Scholarship.
Tyler says, 2-part question I have. Who do you want / think they will hire as the 10th assistant? Also, how short of a leash do you think T has? And how short of a leash do you think T has?
All right, 10th assistant will likely be Kiri Colbert, promoted. Expect that to happen sometime soon. So he'll probably come in and coach wide receivers or something. There's no leash. He's fine. T. Martin's, they're not getting rid of T. Martin either.
Problem is that there's not a leash for some of these guys, it seems. There seems to be approval for John Baxter in some realms of Heritage Hall and the special teams play, when the special teams play was not very good.
It was awful.
That would be another way to put it.
You did math on that?
Yeah, so I did some stats.
Ooh.
This is for our podcast. Yeah, stealing info from the podcast.
I should say this for the podcast, but hold on, let me find it.
It is bad. And that's another, John Baxter is I think, from everything I've heard, Clay Helton thinks very, very highly of. And even though we all feel that special teams was a huge negative for USC, I don't think he's in any danger of going anywhere.
So this is partially the Adoree factor, but in 2016, USC actually played one less game than in 2017. They had in punt return yards, they had 414 punt return yards, and they averaged 15 yards per punt. In 2017, they had 229 total return yards and averaged 11 yards per punt. So that's half.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
Significant. Yeah, there was just not a lot of punch return. Yeah, save their stats there. But, I mean, my contention has always been that there was individual players making plays. It wasn't necessarily like special teams are better because of blah, blah, blah. It was just like you had Adoree picking up balls that he shouldn't have picked up, and he ran them back for touchdowns and stuff. And it was kind of crazy.
The stats agree with you. Also, people are saying, what will it take to make practices more physical?
Practicing more, maybe even a new coach to come in with a different philosophy. Someone who says, "Hey, come on, Clay, we got to get these guys hitting." That's an issue right now. We got to get more physical in practice. That's a problem. And part of it was the injuries. You're playing 12 weeks in a row, and they got banged up really bad early. And you also had a new, longer schedule in fall camp. So there were a lot of factors there that went into that. However, I think the biggest issue for me was never the practices during the season. It was the ones leading up to the bowl game and the fact they went one padded practice and that was it. When you were actually the healthiest you've been all season, that was the time to go with full pads. We haven't seen them do that, and it seems more of a theme that they're not going to do that rather than saying, oh, well, it was the injuries at the beginning of this season and we were playing 12 games. So someone has to come in and say, if we want to be that physical run team that you talked about when you were first hired, Clay, this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
We got to change some things up. This is not working so far.
But I think, like we were saying, I think they have their philosophies, and I don't think the philosophies are going to change. So don't expect no pads November to go away. Don't expect only one padded practice in a bowl prep to change. Yeah, Ohio State practiced twice in full pads the week in Dallas, more than USC did the entire bowl prep. So I don't think he's changing. Those are his philosophies, and I don't think they're changing. Sorry, but yeah, I agree with Shotgun, though. I mean, I think they should. I think you need to. They're kind of acting like there's sanctions time again, where they're not. And the sort of no bye week was an excuse to not doing that. But at some point, you're just like, put the dang pads on and hit some people and just and build that toughness up.
Yeah, there was even one point in the season, I think it was after the Washington State game, it's like, we just want to see them switch something up. There was no energy in practice or anything. And granted, they came out and played really well after that. But, you just felt like, you guys, every once in a while, you got to change things. You can't, they have every year, you're going to have the ice cream truck come once during fall camp. Do something different. When Kiffin brought the ice cream truck, it was something new. He drove it up with Marquise Lee. They did a video with it. It's probably the most hilarious USC video of all time. But it was just different. Do something that's out of the ordinary. It just seems like they're getting to the point where they're already getting into a routine.
It's a lot of routine.
And the routine is becoming an issue, I think. Because you're getting to where people are getting to, this is the ceiling. They're not trying to go above that. It's just, it's becoming that commonplace thing to get to here, and that's where we'll be.
It's fun.
I think I even noted that to you in the Cotton Bowl practices. It just felt so relaxed. It felt so, okay, let's kind of talk on the side, or, there was no intensity, or I'm in fear for my position being taken, or I'm in fear for something. There was no need to be intense because I feel like they didn't feel like there would be a consequence if they weren't. And so it was so relaxed that I was like, I think I turned to you and I was like, this is weird. Are they really ready for the Cotton Bowl soon? So
it's very comfortable, and I think, and it's funny, Coach Harvey Hyde, if you listen to our podcast, old school coach, coached Randall Cunningham in college and Ricky Irvins and stuff. Certainly, football's changed a lot since then. But when you listen to him talk, he's like, if I saw this, we would go full pads you would just do something different to get their attention and I think the concept is still the same, where you got to give a kick in the ass every once in a while and just be like, hey, we're doing, and we talked about this before. I asked the players, if you go to the locker and open it up and there's full pads in there, does that change your mentality? And they're like, they didn't want to admit it, but it's like, yeah, it's a whole different thing. So just going and putting on full pads an extra couple of times where you don't have to tackle the ground, you still just do it. It changes things up a little bit. You can make changes like that.
And it doesn't even have to be to go more physical. The one time they changed something this year, They brought music back on the Thursday practice, the walkthrough. What happened? They beat the dog crap out of Arizona State right after that. Just every once in a while, you have to change. You have to do something different. Pete Carroll was so good. Even I wasn't here covering him for the majority, but at doing something to change to keep the players on edge. I mean, the Lindell White throwing the doll over the that's crazy.
Weird.
That's crazy.
That was very.
But
strange.
what did it do? It kept all the players on edge. There was so many different things. I mean, bringing in the I can't blanking on his name, but the singer for the Ain't No Mountain High Enough song, or was it Lean On Me? Whichever one of them. Bill Withers. Bringing Bill Withers in, and having him sing with the team. I mean, that's, there's so many different things that he did that, were out of the routine. He kept players on their toes, and you kept, every day you had to come to practice, and you had to bring it because you never knew what was going to be happening on that day. And I think that's something that USC needs to look into, is doing, it's good to be in a routine and know that, hey, this is the day, this is how we practice, whatever. And try to treat it as each practice as a game. But what happens in games? Different things happen.
Yeah.
Stuff unprepared for stuff comes. You have to make adjustments on the fly. Yeah. I think that you have to do that a little bit more in practice, and change some things up in your approach to it, the season as well, in my opinion.
And I think spring could be a huge opportunity for that because you're not practicing every day. If some guys get a little banged up, that's fine. You're not playing games. You have time to recover. I think that will. If Clay Helton wanted to do that, spring is a real opportunity to do that because it allows you to have that time and space to change things up.
I think this is our rant version of the live broadcast. We're just doing a bunch of rants and we're not really answering people's questions. So we'll keep trying to answer. But there's, I think we're probably talking about most of what your questions are saying.
Yeah. Ryan Fox says, still think it's odd we haven't had a news conference with Helton yet about the end of the year. When do you think he will? Signing day?
And that might be the next one. Dan Weber, we emailed them trying to find out. We've emailed a couple of times, trying to get clarifications for things. And, there's no plans from what Sports Information is telling us. So, yeah, that's a little strange because there's a lot of unanswered kind of questions that we'd like to talk to them about. And
it was also just strange because it's not like they canceled a press conference that was scheduled for after the game. We lost really bad. We're canceling this. It's not like that. There just wasn't one scheduled at all. Yeah. That's just kind of weird to not have that the follow up to the season. And a lot of us, our whole crew was not in the press conference because we were in the locker room. Yeah.
Well, they told us. They were like, "Hey, you get the locker room. We have the post game stuff in the conference room." So
yeah, that's what they told the video people.
Yeah,
they were like, "Yeah, just don't worry about it. We'll send you the feed later."
You. But yeah. Switching gears a little bit.
Okay.
Someone said, Anthony says, any concerns that Amon-Ra St. Brown isn't worth the drama that comes with him, if the Army Bowl was any indication?
Any indication of what? Him scoring touchdowns?
See, this is the problem I had with this, and this is partially why I brought it up, is because USC fans were so bored with the season in some part. You're missing Adoree and Juju who had that fire. This is a guy who brings that fire and will celebrate and have that bravado. USC, from as long as I've watched football, had that swag. And he brings that. And you kind of lost that with the more vanilla Sam Darnold, Rojo, Deontay Burnett, who they celebrate, but they don't have that fire. And he brings it. And I think that will be a good addition to USC's offense.
He's really good. Okay,
and that too.
Don't worry about that. He's really good. Yes, if he spins the football, he's going to get a 15-yard penalty.
They're going to have to get him a wrist brace so he doesn't do. No, can't turn it over.
If he spins it and punts it like he was doing, there's
And obviously he was playing to the Army personnel that were there. It's an all-star game. You play up to the and he wasn't the only one. Obviously, he kind of started the trend with the West team. And he is super, super good.
Yeah.
If you read the articles about it, I don't think you'd be asking this question. I think that was more of a question that I got during the game, people that hadn't read about how you've been dominating all through the week and how all the other players were talking him up and saying how good of a player he is and how different he is.
Really, I think 247 did their top 10 players from that week, and both of them are going to USC. They're both in the same high school at Mater Dei, which is baffling. So, yeah, USC's got two really good players coming in. I would not worry about him.
He's also trilingual, so.
Yeah. If you notice the video, dropping some French and some German.
Yeah.
I was like, something happen to my TV? And I was like, oh, he's just like speaking multiple languages.
Yeah, his mom's German or whatever. And yeah,
our buddy Sean Rose, Sean Face on Twitter, told me that he thought he'd sat on his remote and pressed the wrong button.
like the SAP button or whatever. Yeah.
Paul says, are you hearing any news about transfers?
Haven't really heard much. Transfers in, transfers out. I think USC was looking at some guys to transfer in. I mean, the big name like Jamel Cook, like he'll likely transfer. I just wouldn't think anything else happens there. I mean, having that incident at the Cotton Bowl would sort of probably secure that. But we'll probably, we'll hear more of that in the coming months. But you guys hear anything different or?
Not much word on transfers. I mean, there's a bunch of speculation about who will leave.
Yeah.
But we haven't heard much about anything imminent.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see about Jamel Cook. I mean, it's just hard to picture Jamel Cook coming back, but, he could. I don't know.
I mean, there's other guys that redshirted. They were upperclassmen. You expect that they're probably going to leave.
Oh, yeah.
But until we hear word of it.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Jeb asked, if Biggie returns, do you see him going to safety?
I've heard that that's a possibility. I mean, everyone's been saying that since he was like a junior in high school, kind of moving to safety. I don't know. Maybe he does. If he returns, I don't know.
Anthony, who asked about Amon-Ra St. Brown, says he plugged a protein drink during his announcement. It's his dad's company.
Yes.
That's what he was plugging.
I forget what it's called, but it's his dad's.
Cane protein.
Yeah.
We just plugged it.
We're plugging it again, too.
Whoops.
It's probably not legal for him to do that or whatever, but
Yeah, I don't understand. Werner says, thoughts about defense with many question marks. They were good.
Yeah, defense was good. I mean, Clancy Pendergast, does more with less, in my opinion, on that side of the ball. He always has a plan. The plan don't always work, but they force a lot of negative plays. He doesn't rotate a lot of dudes. He just got his system. And for the most part, the system works pretty well. They shut Ohio State out in the second half. I don't think you could put any of that game on the defense.
Agreed. Tyler says, what are your predictions for who USC is going to land for signing day, and how will they finish in this recruiting class?
It's probably a lot for this kind of, you're going to be naming guys that people have never heard of and stuff, but I think they'll end up in it depends where JT Daniels gets moved to. I think he's going to be like a top 10 player in Amon-Ra. I mean, you're talking about some high-end talent there, some 5-star dudes. So I think it'll be like a top 6 or 7 program, by the time it's all said and done. They have more guys to bring in than other programs because they only signed 10 or whatever in the early signing period. So, probably not going to get another offensive lineman. There's some really good corners that are on the board. Obviously, you brought in some great linebackers. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting finish, but probably top 6 or 7. Any thoughts, Shotgun? Or
the biggest question I have about this recruiting class is the spots. How many spots are they going to actually have? Yeah. Are people going to be, hey, we're going to need you to medically redshirt, medically retire from your career, or whatever it may be. Are there going to be some people pushed out the door to try to make sure that there is room for some of these high-profile players that they're trying to get here at the end? Because right now, not a lot of slots left. And there's still some big-time targets they want to get.
There could be special teams guys that are just are going to transfer out or something, because you're talking about 2 punters and 2 kickers. They scholarshiped up those guys. So does that mean the guys that came in on scholarships would transfer out too? I mean, it's hard to say. But yeah, it's hard to tell right now just with the number of spots that are up. Now, 3 guys left early already. Some people transfer out. So there's going to be some attrition, and I think that, we'll kind of know more after we see some more of the attrition.
Let's see. Tito says, can you see Jordan Iosefa or Levi Jones taking over for Uchenna?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Levi Jones is really athletic. I thought I'd have liked to see him more this year, but Jordan Iosefa has made some great strides too. It's the big shoes to fill. I don't know if either of those guys are going to be able to bat as many balls down at the line of scrimmage as he did, but I'd love to see. I mean, Jordan Isef is already involved in the defense a lot. I'd love to see Levi Jones involved more.
Jeb Edwards says, do you think Carr will step out and fill Jones' shoes? Do you think he'll be utilized more like McCaffrey?
Any thoughts, Shotgun, or are you busy?
Tweeting, sorry. That's the question.
Jeb says, do you think Stephen Carr will step
Stephen
out?
Carr. Yeah, I think that you can use him in different ways because of his versatility to be able to catch the ball. I think you could even split him out some if you wanted to, and maybe we'll see that with Deontay Burnett.
Maybe
I got
you
basketball
should
on
stop tweeting
my
about
mind.
basketball,
Yeah, I got it on
Shotgun.
my mind right now. So if Deontay Burnett, with his absence, then maybe they use Stephen Carr in a different way in the slot, depending on how they feel about Trayvon Sidney, how they feel if they use Amon-Ra, St. Brown inside. Depending on what they do with that slot position and how they kind of spread the field this upcoming season, I think you could use Stephen Carr in different ways. Get him in those one-on-one matchups with linebackers. I don't think anybody can guard him in that regard. He's basically could be a wide receiver if you wanted him to be. He's a wide receiver that can run the ball very, very well. So I think he just gives you those extra opportunities. I could see him being used in the McCaffrey type of way. I think they should use him in different ways just to use his skill set fully.
I agree. John says, I'm in a lot of pain today. I'm trying to get all the laundry done. Feel you, John. That sucks.
Sorry, John. Laundry blows.
It does. Matt says, what's up with Christian Rector? He playing next year? Yes, he is.
He's been good. He was, he forced him, he forced Clancy Pendergast to play him. So it's not easy to get in that kind of rotation. So, he should be a big part of the defense.
Paul says, can you explain gray shirting?
It's pretty simple. It's just where your academics are not in order, so then you come in January of the next year. The last one that USC had was Darius Rogers. He finished his classes and stuff, but he was not ready academically, so he took some more classes so that he would be ready, and he enrolled actually in January rather than in the fall. But a gray shirt counts towards, so if someone were to gray shirt this year, they would count towards the 2018 class, but they would start January 2019.
Interesting. Jeremy says, will Amon-Ra immediately come in and jump Lewis, Grimes, etc. on the depth chart?
Good question. I don't know where Grimes is on the depth chart right now. There's some really talented young receivers there. Amon-Ra's just so good, though. You figure he's going to be, he'll be in the mix.
But do you think Helton would actually do that? Is this going to be like a you don't have enough seniority type deal?
It's a good question.
No, he's gonna be in the mix, and the question becomes, where do you put him? Do you move him to the slot? I mean, he can play the slot, and he can play outside and get behind guys. That is the bigger question than I think with the opening there. I think maybe that's where he starts out, and then it just kind of depends. And it depends on the spring as well. If one of those other guys, showcases himself to be a good slot receiver. I mean, Trayvon Sidney's looked really good every time he's been in the game. He's had he's probably they say the pound for pound best fighter. He's like play for play the most productive player that USC has
he'll get thrown
had.
in and then make a catch and then whoop, don't see him for the rest of the game.
Yeah, because he would be subbing in for Deontay Burnett, and Deontay Burnett was already getting some time off, and then used two tight ends, different stuff. So it was only when they were doing longer drives and Burnett would run a deep route or something, they throw Sidney in there and he'd make a play. And, he played pretty well in his very limited action. So maybe he showcases himself in the spring. He was looking really good in the bowl practices as well. That they say, hey, maybe we're comfortable with this guy here. Let's, and maybe they move Amon-Ra around to different positions so he doesn't really overtake anyone in particular at any individual position.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could just do a one receiver set with Tyler Vaughns and just go roll with that. Just one guy in the pattern all the time. Max protect.
Full max protection.
Just throw it to Tyler.
9 blockers.
Sure, sounds good. Armando says, what potential impact does Jay Tufele have next season?
Still hearing really good things about him, even though he's like the only dude that redshirted basically on that really good defensive line recruiting class. So, yeah, I expect him to be in the mix. They really seem to not want to burn his red shirt where they burn some other dudes. But, yeah, it's not like I haven't talked to anyone that feels like, yeah, he's a bust. I feel like he's good.
In that same sense, who do you think fills Josh Fatu's spot at nose tackle?
I mean, your obvious answer is Brandon Keely, right? He's the one with the most experience there. I think Malik Dorton, and this partly depends on Rasheem Green, is going to get more and more opportunities. He really came on at the end of the season. Where they use him, if Rasheem Green is gone, then maybe he takes over as that starting position, and you'll see some rotation with Jay Tufele. I think Tufele is more planned to be a backup to Rasheem Green. We'll see, once they get thrown in the actual mix, I think it kind of changes for Kenichi Udeze, and I think they show that they've been able to move guys around in different positions, and even using Rasheem Green off the edge at the end of the season. In the Cotton Bowl, you saw some times where the position they put Christian Rector to rush the passer in pass rush situations, it was Rasheem Green going to the outside, and they had two defensive tackles inside. So I think they've done some different things, moving guys around, and I think it will depend a little bit on Rasheem's decision, but then also on what Brandon Keely can continue to develop at that nose tackle spot.
It's interesting you say that, because Tester Troy asked directly for you, with all the D-line we brought in the last 2 years, do you think Clancy is going to be forced to use more D-linemen?
He told me at the beginning of the season he would always prefer to have speed on the field. He will match up personnel-wise with a team, so that's why you'll see 47 defensive linemen when they're playing Stanford, and then you'll see none when you're playing an Oregon or UCLA Chip Kelly spread team. I think there's a big difference there in the type of team that you're going up against. But he had told me he would prefer to have speed on the field rather than not.
But I don't think he's going to.
Which is why they always are in the nickel primarily.
Yeah. But they're not bringing in. They're not like bringing in. Okay, here's our second string defensive line. It's just his philosophy is play those dudes, and you play them, and especially switch some guys out for specialty situations, and that's about it. So I wouldn't bank on next year they're going to start rotating players all over the place on defense. Like what? I don't see that changing.
Jeremy asks, I can't remember. How quickly did Adoree win the kick and punt return jobs? Right out of the gate, ? I see something similar for Amon-Ra.
Good question.
It took him a little bit.
I think it did, yeah. I think they had him in that group, but I don't think he had it right away. But I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But Amon-Ra was returning the ball forwards, and that's not really what USC is looking for. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, my goodness.
A little snarky on Twitter when that was going on.
Snarky.
And here, apparently.
Anthony says, with our poor O-line this year, how come we didn't run more counters, misdirection, rollouts?
I think that was a common question we got on a lot of the podcasts. Basically, like, some of the offensive philosophies, like what they were doing, didn't seem to match with how, to try to counteract some of the deficiencies that you would see. There were some. I thought there were some good games by the offensive line, but there was a bunch of bad ones too. And then just getting overmatched by Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. I think that's what's kind of fresh in everybody's minds. But that's not part of their offensive philosophy. Like if people are like, they're going to start using fullbacks and I formations, like no, they're not. Like that's the way they do things. So if you're like expecting some wholesale sort of changes, offensive philosophies, any philosophy, I do not expect that to happen. That's my common theme here is like things are pretty much going to be the same way that they were before.
That's just Helton's MO. We're learning.
We haven't really seen a lot of mixing things up,
What would you say is the biggest change that Helton has made? Darnold? Besides coming in and changing the staff originally?
Yeah, so when the first where he had to fire like the defensive side of the guys, man, we shouldn't have basketball news break during one of these things because we just can't get Shotgun's attention. It's basketball. It doesn't. I'm not even saying.
Speaking of Harry, we talked about Melton earlier, so you can rewind and he asked about Melton. So
yeah, Shotgun went on a rant earlier about Melton, so you can kind of and Shemezi Metu went on a Twitter rant about it and stuff. He is not happy with USC athletics. Now, he's a dude that hit a guy in the nuts and got his captainship taken away.
But he's also right.
But he's right, yes. But yeah, there's not been a lot of change. That's what we felt with the Dylan McCullough hire. It was such a breakaway from everything else. It was like, wait, that guy he's never said fight on before. No one knows him. He's good at what he does. So people felt like, okay, this is a great step forward. But it seemed like it was more of a kind of a reach out, and then you put your toe in the water, and then you pull it back, kind of thing.
That's funny.
Good visual there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The biggest difference, actually, that Clay Helton is that there's not chaos all the time. That's the biggest
No,
difference.
but
Come on.
I was saying
That's not a change.
I was
That's the
saying
way
a
he
change. Yes,
if
it
you
is.
listened, I was saying he made a
He made a change.
No.
He took the music away. He said, we're not drinking on the job anymore. We're not going to have booze in the office. He changed that.
He changed the program from the beginning, but
That's a change.
She was asking during his tenure, what has he changed?
That is a change
No.
that he's
No,
yes.
he
That's
came
not-
in.
no.
He came in as a competent human being, which is better than
That's
the
a
last two.
change.
Which it was from which
That's
USC
inherently
needed.
a change when you hire Clay Helton. I'm saying as head coach, what did he
Yeah.
change?
Did he start drinking? Did he start? You
Oh
know,
my
like-
gosh.
No, he didn't do any of those things. He's the same dude. Which that's who he is. So that but
He hasn't
as
showed
a
up
head
with
coach just learning
black-eyed
on the
any
job,
games.
as the head coach learning on the job, I think a lot of the fans want to see some change. Like this is your philosophy coming in, but you've never been a head coach before. So a year in, you can be like, you know what? I'm going to switch this up, which is totally fine. Like you're a new head coach. Like no one's going to begrudge you for saying like, I came in and this was my philosophy and stuff. After 2.5 years looking at it, I'm like, you know what? We're going to go full pads a little bit more than we were doing before. No one would be like, that's terrible. Why are you changing? No, I mean, that would be a good thing. But Keely's point is, I don't think we've seen very much of that.
Thank you. Jeremy's putting me on the spot. He says, Keely, is Ryan becoming too snarky? I've had people text me that you are becoming too snarky.
I agree with you. I think I am. I think I'm too
Is
snarky.
that just like a on the beat type of thing? You're reaching a certain age and
I don't know. Look, you're not wrong. And I've had USC people text me, pissed off at me for me bitching about stuff, and I'm not being snarky for the sake of being snarky, but it's just like some of the decisions are like, I get it. It's like, yeah, you won 11 games, but you watch the games, and they're not performing all that well most of the time, and it's like. I agree with so many of the fans out there, and it's hard because you're not like a fan of this thing, but like there's real problems. I think
common sense. If you just
yeah, but I will try to back off on the snark. You're not wrong. Probably too much snark.
My favorite is the okay. Just the shade. Okay.
A callback to the defensive tackle question. Completely forgot about Marlon Tuipulotu.
Oh,
If
yeah.
he's
Yeah, I was
healthy,
talking
True.
he would get thrown in there too. But we'll see. Back injuries are always kind of suspect.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're at the 1 hour mark. But
Wow.
we can-
Hello.
Oh,
Paul
snap.
says.
That went by fast.
Yeah, happens when you rant a lot. Us as a whole, not you. With
she's
our
really
O
calling me
line's
out.
poor performance, do you think it's coaching or our talent that is the problem? I think it's more coaching than talent. Says Paul.
Shotgun, you have a thought? Or
There's a little bit of a combo. I mean, the biggest issue at times has been communication. That was the biggest issue at the beginning of the season last year. That was some of the issues at the end of this season. When you have communication, then you figure that's more coaching. When you have physical beats, that's usually more talent. That's usually the way I look at it. And now I've never coached offensive line. Offensive line is probably the one thing I know the least about on the football field.
very hard to.
So that would be how I assess it, kind of. So you've seen some communications issues early in Neil Callaway's tenure. You've seen some recently, which is kind of disheartening for USC fans that there were issues like that in the Cotton Bowl when you had 4 weeks to prepare and everything. And I know one of the biggest issues throughout the season has been, well, they threw something that we hadn't seen before. We didn't hear that after Clay Helton this time, but that's also because we haven't heard much from Clay Helton after this game. But maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not sure. I think it was just the straight talent of those Ohio State defensive linemen that showed you maybe this group of offensive linemen aren't quite at that level that defensive line is. That defensive line has several NFL players.
Yeah, a
on it.
lot of NFL dudes.
So it's not a huge knock on those guys that you can't keep up with them because most people didn't keep up with them this year.
As far as the tape thing, I talked to Dan after the Cotton Bowl, and he said that he talked to some players who said they didn't see on tape that Ohio State was going for the ball and trying to cause turnovers. They didn't see that on tape. So they said maybe that was a thing, but also the turnovers were just dumb.
That's kind of weird. And
Yeah.
I think in general, it's very, like Shotgun said, it's very hard to judge the offensive line. None of us are offensive line experts. I think just you look at it, though, how many guys does USC have on the roster? Like 17 or 18 offensive linemen. We thought there'd be a more athletic kind of group this year. Maybe you got Toa Lobendon playing out of position. But I think there's enough talent there. There's a collection of dudes that you could put together something better. So I kind of lean a lot of that on the coaching side. I'm not saying all of those guys are busts and suck. I kind of feel like you could get, there's enough talent there that you could put a better product out there than what we saw.
Yeah. Two-part question. Werner says, do you see Clay Helton using more QB running game if they start JT? Then Giovanni responded to it and said, well, they didn't do it to Darnold. Why would they do it with JT? Darnold is the better runner.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think Darnold's a better runner than JT. JT's, that was one of the knocks on him. He's come along. If you watch the Army All-American Bowl, he actually ran for a couple of really nice plays where it was like third and short, and he took off and ran when there wasn't anybody there. So I think he's capable of that. Sears is probably the best athlete out of all of them. If it would be more likely if Sears or Fink gets the job.
What? You think Sears is a better athlete than Fink?
I think so, yeah. I mean, Fink might be faster, but Sears is a better athlete.
Straight speed, definitely Fink.
Yeah,
but
either of those two, they would be more likely to maybe run more. But maybe they were just protecting Sam Darnold. I thought Darnold should have ran more. He had 450 yards. If you read my piece on did Darnold regress, I think he had 450 yards rushing last year. I think that's a number, and then it was much less this year. And there was a lot more sacks. There was 29 sacks versus 6. But it just didn't seem like, and he had a bigger run in 2017 than he did in 2016. But I think they could have used that more. As part of the offense, and I think they will with a guy like Fink, where it's not like they're not like trying to protect the golden boy who is Sam Darnold, which it seems like that's what they were doing.
If you look at 2016 and compare it to 2017 Darnold, he just runs so much different. I don't know if it's like a mental thing. It's just he looks completely different.
Yeah,
that's my 2 cents.
And amazing that we're having this question when last year when JT Daniels committed, everybody's like, no, they can't have a statue as a quarterback.
Yeah. He worked on that. I mean, JT's a guy that's like, he's basically like been bred to be a quarterback and like responded to the criticism, and like Darnold just played all the sports. He was just like, he's like a natural, JT has been like groomed. So he should come in pretty polished because he's had so much coaching and everything.
The first game I saw JT was the first game of the season at Modern Day, and he had a 40-yard touchdown. And I was like, everyone says this kid can't run. He just ran. And so I was a little confused by that.
Yeah.
Yep. Werner says, "Is it true that ESPN is ESPN's report true that Sam left because he was frustrated with the coaching staff not wanting to change calls?"
I didn't see that report, so
I didn't either.
I cannot comment on that.
One thing that I would have loved to see if Sam Darnold did come back was him to just be given a go no huddle and given a full throttle. You call the plays, you make the checks at the line, that type of thing. Let him actually run a full no huddle rather than that atrocious fourth quarter of the Cotton Bowl.
Oh,
God.
That was me looking at getting the call and then looking back.
That took so long. I think that has to be part of the decision. And if you read my regression piece, like maybe say like he didn't regress, there was all these other things, but he didn't get better for sure. And I think if you want to come back, you want to get better. And it's hard to argue looking at 2016 and 17 that Darnold was better. So if you come back and you're not getting better, then you should probably just go.
Speaking of throwing out stats, I had this one I gave you guys, I think last week. I haven't finished up a story, but down by 3 scores in that game, in the Cotton Bowl. Its last 3 drives ended on the 10-yard line, the 13-yard line, the 18-yard line. You lose by, 17 points?
Yeah.
3 potential scores there. USC needs to hurry up, obviously, right? No. They snapped the ball with more than 20 seconds remaining on the play clock. One time they rushed to the line, hurried up because the play clock starts at 40. So that means they wasted at least 20 seconds on every time that there was a 40-second play clock. Now sometimes there's a 25-second play clock when it's coming out of a timeout or a dead ball situation, but most of the times it's 40. And that was on the last offensive play when it was 4th and goal from the 18. The one time they ran a play starting the play clock had more than 20 seconds on the clock. Ridiculous.
Oh, tell us how you really feel.
Ridiculous.
That was not.
Yeah.
Wasted so much time.
It wasn't very smooth. And I think that's part of the other reason why people aren't happy that they're going to retain Brian Ellis, because if he was involved in that in any way, not saying he was, but that's just, the 4th quarter, third, it was just a disaster.
They were moving the ball.
But it took forever to get the plays in. It's like they down by 3 instead of down by 17.
They were playing like it was the last drive the entire fourth quarter when they were down 17.
This is our rant show. That wasn't too snarky, hopefully.
People said after we had a little snark bit, people said that they enjoyed the snark. So.
Oh, okay. I mean, I think there are some people that do, but I even said to myself that's like, maybe this is a little too
Not your
much.
brand.
I think it's funny, though. I think I'm a funny person, but, that's...
I think there has to be balance, and you balance it out. There's good things, you say the good things. You're just not all one-sided.
Oh, yeah. We had those people on the Peristyle that are just like, there's a thread about, hey, I like sunshine. Clay Helton's a terrible coach. You're like, wait, where did that come from? Yeah, you got to balance it out.
We're not getting as many questions now.
Okay. Good.
My question for y'all is what should be a...
Oh, look at you dropping y'alls now.
Yeah, y'all.
Go to a Cotton Bowl and look what happens to her.
Y'all, what should be realistic expectations for next year for USC fans? I know that's not a thing that SC fans do, realistic expectations, but what should they be?
That's a very good question. I mean, it's hard because the Pac-12 is not good. If Arizona hires New Heisel, they'll have like 2 TV analysts in the Pac-12 South, like coaching.
So weird.
Now, Chip Kelly's great, but it's going to take a little while. Like, USC should be the favorite to win the South for sure, right? Like, I mean, maybe Utah, like they're the only team that won a bowl game, but they've never won the division. It's USC's to lose again. Stanford, most of their dudes are leaving. That's going to be tough. I like KJ Costello, but we haven't heard from Bryce Love yet, right? So he's probably going to go. We'll see about Washington. Jake Browning's coming back, but he's not. USC ate him up the last time they played him. I mean, USC could win the Pac-12 again with like a loss to Stanford on the road early and a loss at Texas and maybe a loss to Notre Dame. And you're talking like a 3-loss team that doesn't make the playoff but wins the Pac-12. I mean, that's realistic expectation, right? Like I would think. And will fans be happy? Like USC could win the Pac-12, and I could see a scenario where fans are not all that happy about it.
Yeah, I can completely.
Or win the South and lose in the championship game if Washington's good, or Oregon. Oregon's an upcoming team. I don't know. What do you think's real? I think winning the Pac-12 is a realistic expectation for next year, even without Darnold. But
really, with an inexperienced quarterback?
Yeah, the Pac-12's just not that good. Like,
if their offensive line blocked better, I could say that.
Yeah. But it could be rough. The problem is 2018 could be very rough. Early road games, a terrible home schedule. The Coliseum renovation's going to suck. Like, parking will blow. Everything's going to be bad. Tailgating. The experience at the Coliseum is going to go way down, even if USC's like undefeated. And if USC loses like 3, 4, 5 games, like, I mean, it's really going to be bad. So I think that's why it's important for USC to try to do everything they could to be great next year, because the experience during game days are going to be awful for the fans. So if you stink on the field too, I'm not saying they will, but there's that potential there. It's like, that it just is going to make things all that much worse. So if USC could like overachieve next year, it would help a lot.
I'm just curious because Helton has put himself in a place where on paper it looks really good, where you can't necessarily go to him and be like, look, this is horrible, because he's going to be like, we're Pac-12 champions, we went to the Rose Bowl. And then if next year kind of goes south, you can blame it on a quarterback, maybe, like an experienced quarterback. So how much does Lynn Swann, how short is the leash,
Yeah.
How much can you be like, no, I'm still firing you? And how much does that dissuade other potential coaches? If you're going to fire that guy.
Oh, never dissuades coaches.
Okay.
Like, it's USC. It's a top 5 program all time. Like, just because you fire a former interim coach, they're not like, if Chip Kelly was looking at it like, I don't want to go to USC. They fired that Clay Helton guy. Like, no, he's Chip Kelly. He's an A personality. He's like, I'll go there and kill it. So I think that has no bearing whatsoever. And I do think the leash is going to be, I think what's important to Lynn Swann is those big national games. And USC was bad in those games last year. They kind of pushed around and beat Texas pretty luckily, get killed by Notre Dame, get beat up pretty good by Ohio State. If they go on the road and get beat up by Texas, all those factors are going to be important for Lynn Swann. So, on paper, USC's, won the Rose Bowl in 2016, won a 13-game winning streak. won the Pac-12 for the first time since 2008. I get all that stuff, but you saw how they didn't look that good in a lot of the games that they should have like crushed teams. So I think it's going to be important next year. I don't think it's like Clayton bought himself like 3 years because he won the Rose Bowl and won the Pac-12. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, it's weird because there's this like kind of like contrast between what it looks like on paper and what it feels like.
Yeah,
and
very different.
And I think that's the contrast when we go to the players after games and be like, "You didn't really play well," and they'd be like, "We won."
Yeah.
You know, it'd be like, well, there's this disconnect. So I feel like that's what fans are feeling. And then you have the coaching staff that's kind of like, well, we won the Pac-12. Like, why are you complaining? You know, so it's I'm curious how that evens out, if it will.
Yeah.
And there can be trouble early in the season. I mean, you play UNLV first, then you go at Stanford, at Texas, and then you play short week against Washington State. Even though that's a home game, Washington State, can give them trouble. Their backup quarterback came in and won them a couple games, or at least one game earlier this year. So it's not like he's going to be a complete drop off from Luke Falk. There's going to be some drop off, obviously, but that could be a troublesome schedule early. And you follow that up with a trip to Arizona and Khalil Tate. You never know. Khalil Tate can work some magic. That could be a really rough start to the season. I mean, that's 4 tough games for USC before they get to, imagine this, guys, a bye week.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
A bye week. But, that's their first 5 games. How do they come out of that? If they're 2-3 or 3-5 or 3-2, I mean, there's going to be some uproar already.
That's going to be tough. And Keely's got a great point. It's about winning games, and USC's won games. They've won 11 games last year, and I've never seen like an 11-win season be met with this much. Some of the Pete Carroll years later on, where they would like lose a game to like Oregon State and then go to like Penn State and win the Rose Bowl. Like fans still weren't happy about that. Losing one game, not going to the championship, and now you'd be in the playoffs, so it's okay. So I get that aspect, but you watch the games, you see like. There are a lot of there's problems there, and I think a lot of the fans kind of reflect that. But sometimes it's unfair to the players and the coaches too, because they're like, hey, they did win. They did win the game. It's just the big ones. It's the Notre Dames where that's what you want to win, and Ohio State you want to show that you're on that same level. And USC just didn't show that they were on the same level in the Cotton Bowl, and that's what kind of sours a lot of the fans, I think.
Well, there's also so many games where they let the opponent come back in when they didn't need to. Utah was decided on the last play. Texas was decided on the last play. Just games where they could have done more and they didn't. And I think that contributes to that feel type aspect I was talking about.
Yeah, I think if you win those kind of weird games where it's like lucky and stuff at the end, like if any of those, and you win out, it's like you're going to have some of those, but then you get like blown out a couple of times too. Then it like kind of puts more of a light on those teams where you should have probably won a lot easier than you did.
That's a little bit different from this year, last year with Sam Darnold. A lot of plays like, oh, it was lucky he didn't have a turnover on that. And this year it was, oh, that is a turnover.
Yeah.
There were several throws last year. I was like, man, he is dangerous with some of these throws. He got away with one there, and some of those ended up this year being turnovers. And people were, how could he regress so much? Well, he was actually making some of these plays last year. He just didn't get punished for them as much.
Yeah. Wide receivers. Pretty much it. I mean, yeah.
Well, we've gone.
People have just taken to our comment section as like a therapy now. There's not really questions. They're just saying their thoughts.
That's fine. We did like an hour. We did longer than we normally do, like an hour and 20 minutes and stuff.
That's it, guys. We're done.
See, but I feel like the second half of the schedule next year.
If they can get through the first half.
Okay, but like that was the same thing with 2016. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they made that great run.
But I think
at Stanford is going to be hard.
But I don't think there is a golden goose coming in and the Sam Darnold to everyone to rally around. I think it's
JT.
What other chosen one JT did?
But I think if you start out 2-3 at the early in the season, people are going to be complaining about Helton more than anything else, and I think the team is not going to have that same, thinking that they're going to turn things around. I think you got to have some 18 to 21-year-old got to have something to rally around. Yeah. Give me something to rally around. Give me a war cry, and I'll chase you in. I'll follow you anywhere. You give me the same old every time, I'm just going to go and play Xbox in my room.
I think attendance could be a real problem because, talking to fans that are just really unhappy, the seats are moving quite a bit, and it's gonna be bad next year. I mean, parking, like I think there's stuff that once you go to the first game, we're gonna hear this. There's gonna be all these people complaining about stuff they didn't even think about before, and it could impact the whole attendance for the rest of the year. So.
But maybe that's part of their ultimate plan in the athletic department. Let's just use this scapegoat Clay Helton, get him through this construction, and then we're losing.
Wow, that's
we're losing all these. We're losing all these fans, but then we'll bring in this high-profile coach, and then win a little bit, and it'll bring all these new fans in. We'll fill the seats back up.
Grassy knoll stuff from Shotgun.
Wow, I thought our tumor rumor was pretty bad. This is next level. This is pretty bad. Now we're getting back into. People are asking more recruiting questions. I don't know if we want to get into that.
I think it's time to stop.
I think
we should probably wrap. Are you guys going to do a
podcast? Yeah.
All right. Well, we got. Yeah, I'm doing a Pac-12 one in like an hour and 40 minutes, so we got to get those done. Yeah. All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry if I was a little too snarky. Sorry we had a bunch of rants, but we do appreciate you getting all the feedback, and if it can be therapy for you, that's why we're here. We love talking about that kind of stuff. So that's Shotgun Spratling. Follow him on Twitter at SPR. I am Ryan Abraham.
Just at SPR?
I'm sorry, Shotgun SPR. I got that part right. Keely is my name. At Keely is my name. Or I'm at Inside Troy. So thank you guys for tuning in to our Facebook Live show here. We'll be back again next week. So
Boo you, USC compliance. Boo you.
Shotgun not happy with that stuff. So send him your hate tweets if you don't mind that. All right, thanks. We'll talk to you later.